Cameron Scott, welcome to Life After Impact, the Concussion Recovery Podcast. How are you today?
I am so good, Isla. It's so nice to see you. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to share this hour with you for sure.
Yes, you too. So I had the honor of not only meeting you at Pranamaya during a healing retreat, but you led a holotropic breathwork class that honestly condensed like 20 years of therapy into about 20 minutes for me. I had an amazing epiphany during that. And so I just so thankful for your contribution to that retreat and just what I got out of those 20 minutes was quite incredible. So you have quite an interesting background. You're a world-renowned fishing guide, and I know you're humble about that, so I'm just going to come out and say it. And you teach breathwork courses. You've been working really hard on this incredible AI tool that's actually empathic. But you've also had a traumatic brain injury. And that's really, I think, one of the things that probably led you on pursuing a lot of these incredible paths in your life. So maybe we start at the beginning.
I'd love to. I'd love to. And it's just funny that you literally coined what my breathwork teacher, his name is John Paul Crimi. You literally coined one of his primary advertising slogans. He's like, "This breathwork is more powerful than 20 years of talk therapy in 20 minutes." I mean, so
All right. I can attest to
it
that.
had the same impact on me when I started it, and more will be revealed shortly. Yeah, so I guess we'll start on the topic of traumatic brain injuries, right? Because that is really, that, to your point, that is the one of the defining injuries, and a lot of us as humans have so many injuries, whether they're spiritual, emotional, physical. Um, that was a turning point in my life. So, in 1982, July 4th, 1982, my mom took my three sisters and I to a little 4th of July party here in Portland, Oregon. And on our way home, we got hit head on by a drunk driver going the wrong way down I-5 at 75 miles per hour. And those were the days when seatbelts weren't a requirement. And so I was in the front passenger seat at 12 years old or so. Yeah, about 12. And 8 years old. I'm sorry, 8 years old. And when that impact hit us, my seat was reclined like this, and so my body folded, and I, head butted into the dashboard. And it took the paramedics and the firefighters with the jaws of life back then to get me out of that dashboard and get me to the hospital. And I arrived there at DOA and was in a coma for 3 weeks with skull fracture on the right side, lost my hearing in the right side. And, there's this thing when we're kids, and, there's so many different dimensions of post-traumatic injuries like that. But growing up, I grew up in an environment with a father that was extremely veteran PTSD, Vietnam veteran PTSD. My first brother, my older first brother, drowned in a tragic accident when my mom was 7 months pregnant with me. So there's different levels of trauma, right, that impact our physical, spiritual being, regardless of injury. But this particular injury was almost like, I don't remember anything pre-wreck. Like, none of my childhood exists pre-crash, nothing. I have no recollection of
Oh, wow.
anything. And so post-wreck, there were probably about 2 years, if I remember correctly, maybe more, where I had to do like so many brain injury tests. Like, I remember being in these chairs that would spin me in a room with a light, and um, just as a young person, as a adolescent, like, these experiences on top of the previous kind of father child traumas, right, made me very uncomfortable in the world. And I was very, like, antisocial to a point, but also, like, um bouncing back and forth at that young age, from, wanting to play outside to hiding in the closet. And as my journey progressed, at like 15, 16, I found alcohol. And so I started, drinking Ham's beers with my friends, and in that was the beginning of an addiction. That addiction obviously allowed me to let go of all the inhibitions, the things about being afraid of being around people, and yet in those drunken experiences, I would have like these fits of rage. And so I got sober. And so I had this journey of like bouncing back and forth, and never really being comfortable in social environments, and not understanding what childhood trauma was, and not understanding any of this stuff. And so, fast forward, I got sober in 2009 after years of bipolar disorder diagnoses, different medications, but every medication that I ever took actually made me more suicidal. And so I struggled constantly in my 20s and 30s with suicidal thoughts, be- mostly because of the number one mixture of alcohol and the depressions and the medication. And so April 15th, 2009, I attempted suicide. And that I woke up the next morning after a blackout with a noose around my neck. And that experience, waking up on the
Wow.
floor, piecing together what I had done, was one of the defining moments of my life. Because that morning, when I realized how sick I actually was, I chose life. And so the next day, I checked myself into outpatient rehab. And I'll never forget this man. I'll love him for the rest of my life. I walked into that class, 2 days after this attempt, and I introduced myself. And because I always spoke in a way that I thought, speak the way people want you to, what they want to hear from you, not what you want to say. I said like 10 words, and he's like, I'm gonna stop you right there. Every time you speak in this class for the rest of your time in here, the next 30 days, I want it with your hand on your heart. Matter of fact, I want you to sit in here with your hand on your heart all the entire time you're here. The minute my hand touched my heart, right, I just started crying. And I mean, in this room full of people I didn't know, in a place I'd never been, like all of these emotions came out the minute I touched this space I had never even thought about. I was always up here. I was always like,
Wow.
"You're not good enough. You're not worthy. You're not lovable. You're not loved. You don't need to be here." And the minute I touched this like power vortex, it was just like, blah. And everybody came over and put their hands on my shoulders and my back. And it was one of those moments where I realized, like, I don't know shit. I don't know anything. And everything I've ever told a doctor was really a lie. Like, it was always me trying to make myself look better, and my ego trying to stand in front of, you know, what is a traumatic brain injury? What do those impacts have? And what are the effects of alcoholism in your life, other than, following in the footsteps of what you've been taught? And so I started sobriety. And for the foundation of my sobriety was based in AA. And so I went to AA for 7 years, and I learned how to, I learned how to be sober. But along the way, I found yoga, and yoga opened up a whole nother dimension of like, whoa, body and breath. It's not just about the heart. Like, whoa, holy cow, what's going on? And I fell in love with yoga. And that path led me to meditation and breath work and journaling, right? And so, I'm sure you're going to have some questions here, but that's kind of like the extended path of realizing from a TBI, which really, that TBI was my first one. I've had three. Um, my car accident happened at 8. The second traumatic brain injury was 12 in Alaska. We had moved up to Alaska, and for any kid that lives up there, you probably do this too. Like in the winter, the icicles get so big hanging on. Well, they probably do, and yeah, not in Portland, but the icicles get so big hanging off the roof that as kids we used to run around with our sleds and hit the top of the ice hanging off the roof, and cover our head, and that ice would jam into the snow. Well, the sled fell out of my hand or something, and one of those ice cubes as it came down hit me on the top of the head, and that was the second concussion.
Oh my
and
gosh.
and then the third, in high school I used to train horses, and I got kicked off, and I got bucked off and kicked in the back of the head, and that was my third. So that is kind of my you know concussion TBI components of mental health, right? And how that shows up in our life and how we show up in understanding it.
And do you recall other symptoms that you can relate directly back to those teenage concussions?
Mostly cognitive and emotional, but in high school, like, I would have, like, mostly for me, like, the primary effect really was, like, just wanting to be in isolation. Like, it was like I was so overwhelmed in high school events, at sporting events. Um, the only time I could ever do like the dances or concerts in my 20s was like completely inebriated. It was like that was the only thing that shut down whatever was so overstimulated, that it was like either if I was to attend, it was inebriation or I didn't go, right? And so that followed me for quite a while, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And so what role did being in Alaska where you've got access to, like, incredible nature,
Yeah.
what role did that play?
Nature has always been my healer. And I grew up in Bend. I mean, most of my childhood was in Bend, Oregon. We spent a year or so in Portland, and about a year in Montana, and a year in Alaska, but most of it was in Bend, Oregon. And Bend, for anybody out there that's heard of Bend, it is such an amazing place. It'll forever be the home in my heart. Um, but like every day I was down either playing in the river or out, climbing the hills. And um like for me, like nature was the thing that always silenced that discomfort of my inner voices. Like I could just go out and sit on a rock on the river at 14, 15, and find some solace in that place by myself. And for me, that opened up like this massive door of purpose, like not purpose yet, passion. And so every day, fly rod, spinning rod, fly rod, like down, hopping boulders, and running through the creeks and the rivers, and fishing, and which allowed me to walk this path of that became like my purpose. Like fishing became my purpose. And I mean, for like all of my high school 20s, 30s, even my 40s, I just finished guiding in the backcountry 2 years ago. Like that that purpose allowed me to share experiences, because I also realized something like, you know, one of my greatest joys is sharing experiences. And when I became a fly fishing guide, it was like God answering every prayer I ever wanted, was to, take people on amazing trips down beautiful rivers, chasing, fish that live in the most majestic canyons, and have the experience of a lifetime. And that's part of like what we'll talk about here in a moment is, you know, how do I want to say this? Like, so my TBI, I I struggled with medications my entire time. Every time I took them, it made me feel worse. And yet, when I didn't take them, I didn't understand the swings that I had, right? From highs to lows, and So I had this battle for many years with the medications, and I would take them for a while and then not take them, and take them for 6 months and then not take them. And when COVID happened, I had been in a long-term loving relationship, and I was a high-end home builder in Bend, Oregon. I was also a fly fishing guide, and I was a breathwork teacher and a life coach, and I had all these different things going. And when COVID happened, like something inside of me snapped. Like it was just like I realized I was living in multiple dimensions of purpose and passion, and yet something inside of me was like, you are standing behind a half a dozen masks, never really showing your authentic self. That's the person that knows who you are behind all the people that you're portraying yourself to be. Um, and so I went on a road trip. Like I sold everything. I ended relationships, sold house, sold business, sold everything. And I went on a drive. And when I started that drive, I had no plan, no place to go, no nothing. I was just lost, adrift in this universe of like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Um, and so I went on a 28,000-mile drive. I drove all over the Western United States, every dirt road I could find, every hidden nook in Baja. And and along the way, I started peeling these masks off. And I had promised myself on the journey that, I wasn't going to do any medication. I was going to go out and I was going to ask myself some really hard questions about what I discovered in the healing modalities of yoga and breathwork and meditation, and sharing, these modalities as a breathwork teacher in retreats, and go out and ask some really hard questions and peel these masks off to find that authentic person that is in each one of us, that we so often, refuse it to come to the surface because of who we think we're supposed to be, how we think we're supposed to show up. Right. And so during this journey, um, I uncovered some of those truths. And what the first one, like, so what I'm going to share, like some of the stuff I'm sharing, like it's counter a lot to what my psychiatrist over the years would have advised me to do, right? It's counter to what are in the books. And so what I'm sharing is just my story, right? It's just my story. It's not, it's there's no medical advice here, or anything. But what I had to do was, because of these battles with my mental health, I started to see this correlation that when I was in my practice, when I was doing my daily meditation, when I was hitting the mat, when I was journaling, like, and I've been very consistent about those, but when I was in my practice, it allowed me to stay grounded, right? And when I would allow stress or overwhelm to take over the importance of my practice, I would feel myself starting to shift back into resentment, regret, overwhelm. So the journey for me was like coming back to center. And then once I did that, like what I realized, every time that negative part of me showed up that allowed me to think myself into suicidal ideations to take action on it, I despised that individual. Like, I did not want it to be a part of my life. I didn't want to connect with it. I didn't want to acknowledge it. But when I was out on that road trip, and through these several years I spent in the backcountry over the past couple of years, like that I learned that was a part of me. Like I learned that part of me that I was, that dark side, right? That dark side was a part of me, and it was never going to go away. And so I started to invite it in and love it, like love every facet of what it was teaching me and what it had taught me, and what it was actually showing me, the triggers that I had to be aware of, right, in our healing journey. And so, for me, that's one of maybe the most prominent lessons that I've learned in having a TBI. And learning how to stay in my practice, but also loving that part of me that I for so long thought was trying to kill me. It's
And once
crazy.
you
So
integrated that part of you, did that voice
it's so
quiet
much
down?
to the point that like, so I'm building this AI company called EQ Intelligence AI. And I started it 2.5 years ago. And it was almost like for me, part of my healing journey is it has been some psychedelic experiences, plant medicine, and I came back from a plant medicine experience, and I had a dream, and it was like this whole download of what the next chapter of my life looked like. It was like I woke up and I'm like, oh, holy shit, I know exactly what I'm gonna do. I didn't understand how hard it would be, and so this journey of building an emotionally intelligent operating system for coaches and health and wellness thought leaders, and to meet clients with empathy and loving kindness from that first touch point at this intersection of humanity and technology, right? And for me, it's like I know what's so important to the people that we're in service to is like making sure that they feel felt, seen, and heard as we're trying to figure out how to automate our businesses and free up more time so we can be of service to more people. This journey for me has been, pardon my French, but so effing stressful. I had no idea that the universe in assigning me this task was going to make this one of the hardest things I've ever done. And along the way, there have been like monumental stressors, financial, especially trying to run a startup on a bootstrapped budget. And through the stressors and through all of that stuff in the past, like in pre-loving that part of me that I thought was trying to destroy me in the past, like it created moments of self-sabotage. Like it literally, because I was not inviting it in. And so by learning how to love that part of me and really like it, I say thank you to him every morning, like thank you, right? Like inviting that into my life on a daily basis to be here, and it has changed the way I operate in every single facet of my life, my relationships, my business. It doesn't mean I don't get fucking stressed. It doesn't mean that there isn't days of overwhelm and sleepless nights and the complexities of, what it takes to be an online entrepreneur today and be a solopreneur, and all of us, right? All the beautiful people that you invite onto your podcast. We're all out here trying to figure out, like, how do we touch more people? How do we impact more lives? How do we help others? And the journey's not easy, right? And so for me, having such mental health challenges on top of, there's parts of me that don't work right. Like the ear doesn't hear. I mean, very, very little. The brain damage, one of the things we learned in my journey with the medications is some of the medications I was taking, like trileptal and Abilify, um, literally, I guess, like went to work where that scar tissue is at. And so I had a doctor who put me on an anti-seizure medication that completely changed the
Mm.
way that the medication was working for me. Right. So like in this journey of those of us who struggle with TBIs and the mental health side effects that come with it, like I don't know that there's one size fits all, right? And so we have to do this dance of loving ourselves enough to explore every modality and every option until the pieces click into place that allows us to love ourselves wholly, fully, and completely. And you know, to my point with building this tech company, like there are no days that there aren't overwhelmed. And it's, when it comes to mental health, like overwhelm's a trigger. It can honestly be a major trigger in terms of how we function. And
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
so back to whether you're on medication or not, like we have to initiate serving practices into our lives to take care of us, to take care of ourselves. And so, like, my partner and I in the morning, we have a meditation, we have the quiet hour where we're both sit in our meditations. In the middle of the day, I'm either journaling or I lay down on a bed of nails and I put my headphones on and I take like 45 minutes and I let my body, right, my mind and my body soften. I make sure that, we eat healthy and and exercise, but it's like, I know if I didn't do those things, that trigger would become explosive firepower to move me from, staying on the spectrum of alignment and grounding with knowing that I have mental health issues and TB and all that stuff to literally sliding to the other end of the spectrum where I know what's the potential of not managing, what I know to be true and work, right? So it's like, um, yeah, it definitely learning to love that part of me changed everything about how well, it changed everything about how what happens when I put my hand on my heart. Because it's the whole being. It's the whole persona of me that I've learned to love instead of the good me, right? And running from the what I thought was the bad me when it was just an unintegrated aspect of my journey. And I know there's so many people that struggle with mental health that this isn't their story, right? That we all have a different facet of how we ended up where we're at and the tools we're using to manage it. So yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about holotropic breath work? Because I had always heard of it and I had never done it until last summer when you led that class. And what a fascinating experience that through breath alone we can kind of transport ourselves to a whole different
I
place.
love breath work. I had been going to yoga for like 4 years and I had gone to like, I mean, my first yoga class, my back was out. A person that handed me a cup of coffee every morning. She handed me this cup of coffee. I was groaning in pain as I put my arm out the window at 40. Stress. I've learned my back goes out, like it's stress, number one. And it's unmanaged. It's unmanaged stress. And so she's like, you need to go to yoga. Now, at that point in time, I was like, 37, and where I grew up in Central Oregon, like in my teenage years, that yoga was never a word I'd ever even heard of. I don't even know if I heard it in college, right? And call my social circle small. But so I had been going to yoga for like 4 years, and from the very first time I touched a mat, like it just changed my life. I mean, it's just the connection to body and breath. And so I started to generate like new relationships in that community of yogis on a daily basis, connecting to their body and their breath and seeing all of us releasing these emotions on the mat. And so one of my yoga teachers one night, I remember it was like an evening. I was running my business out of my construction business out of my house. And I get this text. And she's like, my best friend, JP, is coming to Bend tomorrow night to do a breath work. You need to go. Which coming from my yoga teacher basically means she knows what's going on and I need to go, right? So I didn't do any research. I'd never done breath work other than what they said to do and vinyasa yoga and shavasana. Like that was it. So I thought we were going to go and sit in lotus pose and do some simple breathing. Holy shit. Like I I walked into this room. I walked into this room and immediately like the energy felt different. And the teacher John Paul, great just a beautiful human. He delivers this class. And he had us lay down on the mat, put our blindfolds on. I remember, I didn't understand why we would need to bring like a tissue and some of these subsidiary things that he had on his list for simple breathing. I had the most transformational, like the most yoga, like touched me in beautiful, deep ways. this transformational breath work literally, it blew it blew doors wide open in me in a single session, to your point, that that was the most transformational experiences I'd ever had in any way, shape, or form in my healing journey before that, and probably even up to now. Massively transformational for me. And when it was done, I had snot, and just I was just covered. It was just roars, like just screaming. He had us screaming, and stuff was just coming out. And when that class was over, he shared, I have a track you can buy on, I think back then it was iTunes. So I went home that night and I downloaded it, and I did that breath work every morning. I got up at 3:30. I did breath work. I then sat in meditation for 30 minutes. At that point in time, I was also working with Rolf Gates. And then I journaled for 30 minutes, and then I drove to yoga, and I did that every day for 90 days. Completely like altered the trajectory and the course of my life. So during that process of becoming deeply aware of like how many layers of shit, over the years of being a human in this third dimensional experience, like how many layers of trauma and dense negative energies were stuck inside of me, that every time I did a breath work, it just came out. Um, so I was blessed to, that was in his early days of being a teacher as well. And so, he and I started connecting, started communicating, and he invited me to his first teacher training class. I think it was in 2016. And I think there was only like 10 or 12 of us. And so I went, got certified by John Paul Cremy for transformational breath work. And one of the highlights of my healing modality was, and it wasn't to be a teacher, it was just to learn like the deeper nuances of how truly the breath affects the body in just about every single dimension that we exist in, and its impact to heal us at every dimension we exist in. And so I started a company in Bend, Oregon called Soul Roar Breathwork with a couple. I had an energy healer, a yoga teacher, as well as they were each breathwork instructors. So we had this really cool breathwork, weekly breathwork experience. And you know what I've learned over the years in delivering these really transformational experiences, from classes to retreats to places like beautiful Pranamaya in Belize, and as a lead backcountry guide on the Middle Fork, almost every trip to some of the most successful people in the entrepreneurial world would come down river with us, and I would do these breathwork sessions on the banks of the Middle Fork. Like our bodies, not oxygen. Deep breath work is probably the most like roto-rootering way to get in there. And I always say you don't have to name it, but setting the intention to let go of all the shit that we're carrying on a daily basis, whether it's childhood traumas, childhood programming, and again, at the heart of everything is this little kid inside of us that wants to be loved and seen and felt and heard. And along the way, we have the traumas and the stories and the ways that we're programmed to show up that layer on top of that. And so this transformational breath work, like to be able to get in and just like to your point, in 20 minutes, like, holy shit, how is that even possible? Like, how is that possible? Right. But what also makes it so powerful is the breath does an amazing job of clearing that density, that dense stuff we carry that we don't even know we're carrying it. I think most of us, we don't know we're carrying it. We're so stuck up here. Like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And yet when we do the deep breath work, we realize when that breath quiets this, every single trigger that kick starts this into overwhelm and stress and anxiety and self-defeating belief patterns stems from the stuff that lives down wherever we can stuff it in our beingness. And that transformational breath work rips it right out of us. what makes it even so much more powerful is the heart opening moments at the end. And those heart opening moments at the end, to remember the power inside of
Yeah.
us when it comes to setting goals and what it felt like to accomplish those goals, to to call in all the things we're grateful for in our lives and bring it into our heart, to call in and remember all the love we have for all the people, and to be reminded that we're the most important part of that journey of loving ourselves. To be able to love another, we have to be able to love ourselves, right? And so that breath work, it's like it it roto-rooters, it clears out all of that dark, heavy energy, and then literally we get to finish it off with love and gratitude. And it's like we get up off the mat and we feel like butterflies. Like we just feel like, and you do that consistently for a period of time, and you begin to realize like nothing up here is even true. Nothing that happens up here is true. It's what happens here, right? In our heart. Like this is what's true. And so that breathwork allows us to reconnect to truth every single time. I mean, if you do it, if you put the eye mask on and you put the headphones on, I actually have, you can go to my coaching website and you can buy um, breathwork tracks, financial abundance, self worth, love and gratitude, right? And so you can just lay down and put the headphones on and let it go.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely be sharing that. So talk a little bit more about, because you said you have your coaching business, but then you've got this AI tool that's been all consuming for the last 2 years. Where are you at with that after 2 years of very hard work?
Here's another thing I've learned, right? Like, and this has to do with mental health. Again, it's like, I don't know about the rest of the world out there, but I do know that mental health exists on a very, you can call it a very sharp, double-edged part of life, or a very fast-moving spectrum, right? You can be really well one day and not so well the next day. You can be on fire by 9 a.m. and deadbeat tired and want to just say fuck it to everything and by 4, right? So like this journey of building this company has been so overwhelmingly hard. And there's also this concept, and you're one of them. Like you are such a light warrior and a spiritual entrepreneur. And there's so many of us coming into the marketplace right now as spiritual entrepreneurs to try to bring light to the world. There's a lot of chaos going on out there that, we're trying to do our best to shine our light, to offer a product, to be of service to the greatest good. And we can start this journey and think we're going to work with all the people that are just like us and want to be of service and want to be honest and want to do the best thing and want to have the most viable, structured, win-win type partnerships. And, it's, I've done that. It has not been that way for me. It has been a very like, I've had a development company that I contracted with that failed me miserably and cost me a significant amount of time and money. Also mental health was part of like, oh my God, so hard. The journey to build an emotionally intelligent AI system to communicate to coaches, to communicate to coaches' clients, to service providers' clients. My partner is one of the top salespeople, the top salesperson for Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi in the mastermind.com community. And so I get to listen to calls every day. We both work from home. And the world over, everybody out there, the world over, like everybody is struggling in this online environment with very, very similar things. How do we acquire more clients effectively, but also without having to set aside 10, 15 hours a week in discovery calls to onboard those clients into our environment? How do we onboard clients effectively in an automated process that allows them to feel felt, seen, and heard during that onboarding engagement into our ecosystem, so that when we have the call with them, we have all of the information, they have it, we connect with empowered human connection. And then how do we retain our clients in this environment when we're not directly connected with them in a Zoom session like this, right? And then how do we ascend them through our value ladder? So that was kind of the underlying principle of bringing EQAI to life while still trying to figure out how to train AI to speak in the emotional, contextual awareness of empathy and loving kindness from the very first touch point. And part of my desire to do this was as a 50-year-old man who grew up kind of in sheltered Bend, Oregon, and then found most of his time out in the wilds. When I was in airports and when I'm traveling, like, forgive me, but it's like everybody is face down in this, right? The world over. If they have it, their face is in. And no judgment, no judgment, because if I have it, I'm often there too. But what I discovered, yeah, yeah, and so what I realized was is like this technology that we're adopting into our lives, like how can we how can we use it to be a to how can we integrate it into our lives with the intention for it to be of service to us, right? For it to help us, to help our businesses, to help the people that are looking for help from us to help transform their lives on this journey while we're interfacing with this technology. And so EQAI, EQ Intelligence AI, was born from that passion, from all of these lived experiences behind me as an entrepreneur and a breathwork teacher and a life coach, and all of these things that I've been so blessed to do in my journey, was for some reason or another, with no tech experience or background whatsoever. Um, it's taken me 2 years to bring a product to market that we're launching April 1st. Yeah, we haven't launched it. And so April 1st, EQ Intelligence AI comes online. We're gonna onboard our first your name's on the list. We're gonna onboard our first 10 or 12 clients and coaches and make sure that the product is functioning the way I know it already is. I'm so proud of it. Like it's been such a gift to, like, you know when we want to be of service, like, it requires us to open our heart, right? It requires us to really step forward and, like, you know, create something from the heart, and yet have to set up boundaries all around the perimeter so that in this late stage capitalistic environment that we are currently watching crumbling at the seams, we're still able to, be of service and deliver something that's of value. And EQAI was born from that. And so, like, it does an excellent job. It just does an excellent job of meeting clients and this AI experience where, my AI partner on EQAI is named after James Bond's quartermaster, right? The intellectual, witty, fun. And so EQAI, you can go and converse with Q, and he'll literally walk you through how EQAI will help transform your business. And then you take an assessment, and that assessment then leads to call to actions to book or purchase the program, right? So what we did right there is we figured out how to we figured out how to do the acquisition from the very first touch point with kindness and empathy and motivation, and making clients who are using this technology to find the solutions in their life, allowing them to be felt, seen, and heard. Because now I know, when I meet with you on the book a discovery call, I know exactly what your challenges are, your pain points, what's holding you up in your business. And so I got to get on the phone with you and just be like, hey, wow, we got so much cool shit to talk about today. Here's exactly how, right? My platform's going to ensure that you meet your transformational goals. And then along the way, what EQAI does is it supports service providers, is follow-ups. Because as coaches, as service providers, like, we only have so much time in the day. And so whether we're whether we're doing one-on-ones like this or one-to-manys, we only have so many hours where we can actually connect with our clients to deliver the human experience of transformation. The rest of the time, we have to do automative work. We have to do administrative work. I realized the reason I got frustrated in my life coaching business was because I was spending 27 hours a week doing administrative tasks, and I only had 13 hours of the other available time I had to be a life coach, right? So from that lived experience, we're automating every single thing we can in the back end to manage clients so that coaches can touch more clients. That's what EQAI is born to do. And so I'm so stoked to bring it to life April 1 and start reaching out and getting my friends onboarded into the community.
All right. Well, I think in honor of April 1st, I'll release this episode on that day.
I love it. Yes, I love it. That would be great. Yep, that would be great.
Well, amazing. So where can people find you and your information and your EQAI and all the things?
Yeah, so good to be here with you today. Thank you so much. We For EQAI, if anybody out there is interested in empowering their platform, their offering with an emotionally intelligent ecosystem, you can find us at eqintelligenceai.com. For anybody out there interested in breath work, I have some meditation, I have some one-on-one coaching. I have a coherence codex product that we talked about at the beginning. Coherence, we didn't even get into that, right? Like coherence. And that can be at CameronScottCoaching.com. And then you can just look me up on social media, Cameron Scott, and I should pop up there somewhere.
Yeah, so the coherence AI that you created is within Chat GPT. So explain that to me, because like when I clicked the link you sent me and I kind of like interacted with it a little bit, and then it said, oh, you can add this to your sidebar, and so then all of a sudden it appeared on my Chat GPT sidebar, and so I'm like, oh, this is kind of a whole like I use Chat GPT Scholar. That's like what I'm on primarily. But now I have this coherence on my sidebar too that I can tap into. So yeah, maybe just chat a little bit about that real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So again, like I tell my partner this. I've done it twice now. I just built a custom GPT. Well, I mean, how does a river guide, custom home builder, with no tech experience? It's all prompt based. But anyway, part of my journey before I even understood what coherence was, like when we start something in purpose, passion, and alignment, when we move into an entrepreneurial endeavor, no matter what, like whether it's entrepreneurialism or charity or whatever, like, we can operate in alignment and still come slightly out of tune. It's like a guitar, right? And so we're still operating in a place of alignment as an individual pursuing parenthood, entrepreneurship, whatever. And then all of a sudden that chord becomes out of tune. And so in this journey of building EQAI, I was invited to participate in this elite spiritual summit a few months ago. I was in a remote plant dieta, and like all of this stuff happened at like the same time. And in the plant dieta, like for whatever reason in a meditation, coherence came up. It came into my like frontal lobe, like literally like coherence. And the minute it hit me, I was like, whoa, that is exactly what I'm struggling with like on a daily basis. It's not so much that I'm not in alignment. It's that I'm out of coherence. And what does that mean? And how does that look? And all of a sudden, like I'm building up a product in my coaching platform called the Coherence Codex. And coherence and incoherence, light and dark, all of the things that live on a spectrum. we can move in and out of coherence very easily throughout a day. And, a phone call, a simple phone call at 9 o'clock in the morning can move us from what we know was coherence at 8:59 to what is incoherence at 9:15, right? And while we can make incoherent decisions in a state of incoherence, and we can also make coherent decisions in a state of incoherence. And it doesn't mean that they equal each other out. It means that whatever decision we make in whatever state, our state amplifies what we're experiencing. So if we make incoherent decisions in an incoherent state, right, we're obviously going to be amplifying that state of being of incoherence. If we make incoherent decisions in a state of coherence, we start to move, right? So I build this product, I present it at the Elite Spiritual Summit, and then I wake up the next morning at like 2 a.m., my zone of genius. I'm like, what would it be like if I actually built a GPT so that my clients, instead of needing to check in with me, like to talk, if they're struggling, like, what if I just built this thing that like blah, 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 blah. And so I sat down and over an 8-hour period of time, like designed this Coherence Codex GPT that literally allows us to like click on the sidebar, type in like, I just had a phone call, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I have a big business decision that I'm making, or whatever. And the objective behind the codex is to like remind us to pause. And again, somebody might argue, well, why don't you just pause? Well, it's easy to pause and do nothing. Sometimes we actually need to pause and take a break, take a breath to realize, like, am I pursuing a decision that's going to lead me into more incoherence? And so like in the state of coherence, there's capacity, structure, and direction. So direction is like, are we making decisions that are taking us out of alignment, out of coherence, life, business, health, wealth, love, relationship, whatever it might be? Because if we're making those decisions, it actually meant that we're moving out of coherence in the weight of having made the decision, right? So the cue was, before we made the decision, what was the trigger? Were we overwhelmed? Were we stressed? Did we not sleep well? What's taking us out of truth, alignment, into making a decision that's taking us out of coherence? And then, like, once we're feeding that vehicle of incoherence, it actually becomes, the decision has a weight to it. It impacts our structure, whether it's finances, relationship, whatever. And so this Coherence Codex is the opportunity, like, to literally, like, just for 5 minutes in the morning or in the evening, like, just sit down and check in. And you can have actually multiple topics going, where one might be relationship. I mean, because trust me, we all got a lot of shit going on, right? So one might be relationship, one might be your business, one might be, an idea. And all of those different things can impact our ability to operate in this state of coherence.
Yeah, and my experience, I think I was surprised when I kind of presented it with the issue I was struggling with, was that it gave me a very small action step of like, just pick one aspect that is like of, operating your day-to-day business that you just like really don't like doing, and it like just find one thing that you could maybe delegate, right? And sometimes, like, obviously with coaching, you don't ask someone to just be like, oh, you need to make 100 dramatic changes today, right? It's like, no, we need to, like, atomic habits, right? Like, we got to just like little,
Little steps make big differences.
yeah, little steps just change that trajectory a little bit. Just like what I was saying earlier about, I almost wanted to just quit teaching entirely, only because I was sick of like having to hand out certificates and deal with like people not being able to access videos. And like, by just handing all of that off and changing the platform, all of a sudden I fell in love with teaching again, because I got rid of all the things I didn't want to do that I shouldn't have been doing.
The administrative. Yeah, that administrative aspect, right? um, and that's another thing too. Like, you know, back to like, I almost am discovering like everything I do in my life anymore, it literally it's full circle to mental health. Like mental health, whether we have TBIs or not, whether we've had concussions or not, whether we've, whether we've healed all of the generational traumas and childhood traumas or not. Like in today's overwhelming framework of information that we are in, it just, I mean, literally bombarded with every time we do turn on the technology, whether it's the radio, the news. I mean, I don't read or look at any of that, but like the amount of information is overwhelming and it's designed to keep us mentally unhealthy. And so we cannot solve all of those problems with one step. We cannot fix everything that's wrong with us with one modality. We cannot fix our mental health issues with one pill or one journal writing or one thing. What we can do is be very aware that progress takes time. There's no such thing as perfection, and it's the little things we do every day in service to ourselves, like setting aside that 15 minutes to write, setting aside that 5 minutes to check in with the coherence codex, and just do it. It's like your internal check-in without having to hire the coach or whatever it might be. Then it's also like taking a break in the middle of the day, making sure we're getting our water, we have to do these little things. There's no 1 hour of the day or one event that's like gonna fix everything. So it's these little steps and 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there throughout the day that allow us to maximize the opportunity to be as mentally healthy as we can, while also understanding none of us are ever going to be not sad, not mad, not overwhelmed, not, whatever it is. Like life still happens whether you're mentally healthy or not. Life still happens whether you have a practice or not. Life still happens when you have a business or not. And life was not designed for us to experience it in a state of ease. It was actually designed for us to experience it in a state of all that it is. The hard, the overwhelm, the loss, the love, the financial challenges, the whatever is coming to us in our lives is meant to be of service to us. Whether it's good or bad, as hard as that might be to digest at times, especially when we're in a state of poor mental health. But those little things, those little check-ins every day, like learning to love ourselves fully, like put your hand on your heart, take a deep breath, remember who in the fuck you are. You matter. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Your love to this world matters. We need you. All of you. Thank you. It was awesome to be here. Thank you so much.
Mm, what a great way to end the conversation. It's a powerful note.
Thank you. It was awesome to be here. Thank you so much.
Ah, thank you so much.